Welcome everybody to a new episode of the Pondcast. Today's episode, From the Deep End, MewTwo Raid. I'm your host Draco, and joining me today is Chase.
How's it going?
And Guren.
Hello.
And let's dive in.
So for those of you who follow Blaines, you would have seen recently he's put out a video on a potential raid event that we could see in the very near future. And for those of you who might also know, I believe it's the 25th anniversary of the first Pokemon movie coming out, which you'll see how this ties into it. And that's happening, I think, sometime this month, if I'm not mistaken, sort of middle to late part of the month.
And we do plan on making a proper MewTwo Raid video when we have an official announcement as to what we're going to be going up against. So this is just more of a conversation about the raid itself and the mechanics that seem to be implemented in this particular raid, being that it's so different.
As I said, Blaines has recently put out a video where he covered a data mine done by one of the very prominent data miners in the community who goes by Anubis on Twitter. She's definitely been putting in a shift, and she posted this on Twitter. So it's a MewTwo Raid event, which we've seen happen before because it did happen in Sword and Shield. However, she was able to get it working in the game. However, the Mewtwo had to be coded over a chess node in order to get the raid to work, because the Pokemon Company haven't pushed sort of the quote-unquote raid dot into the game, if I'm not mistaken. And in this MewTwo raid, if you send in a Mew, which is currently a transfer-only Pokemon, and you beat this raid with the Mew, instead of being able to catch a Mewtwo with the Mightiest mark, your Mew will then gain the Mightiest mark. And this is the first raid we've seen where this is the case, because before we've been able to catch the starter and they've all had Mightiest mark. In Blaines' video, he does cover that maybe we might get a Mew as a mystery gift, because we are seeing a lot of Mew events happening. For example, you can pay $5 in order to get a Go ticket or have the chance to get a shiny Mew in Pokemon Go. But yeah, I want to know your guys' thought on this kind of raid. Are you guys for it? Do you think that we could see more of these in the future?
In terms of like the raid itself in general, I feel like it's a welcome addition, because I do remember the one from Sword and Shield when they did introduce the MewTwo Raid, and that was one heck of a raid. It was just frustrating and annoying, at least, based on the raid mechanics we had back then, where the raid Pokemon did have shields before you can actually start damaging it. So like that made it super annoying. I don't know how it's going to be like for this one. I mean, the Pokemon just has like an absurd amount of HP now instead, and it does have something like a shield mechanic. So I think challenge-wise, it'll be, once again, frustrating and definitely fun to play against. But yeah, I do think it's a welcome addition to Scarlet and Violet.
I'm of two minds, personally. Number one, I like the idea of being able to get a mark put on Pokemon that partake in the mightiest raids, because honestly, it kind of feels right. They get the mark for being able to beat a extraordinarily powerful Pokemon. And I hope they proliferate that to all your Pokemon, not just Mew. But the problem I have is that in recent years, it just feels like they are paywalling Mew specifically. So if you haven't been playing the game for 30 plus years and managed to get your Mew from different prior events or from traded from overseas where they've had other different events, I think it's a little shady. So I do hope that they do offer a raid for Mew that you can then turn around and go for this MewTwo raid with your newly acquired Mew. And as a matter of fact, I really do hope that they allow the shiny Mew to be caught as well. Personally, I mean, I understand that they want to keep the ratios the same, but at the same time, if you're going to promote a raid, they really should augment the shiny chance on those raids themselves. But that's just my 2 cents.
I agree with you, Drake, on they've definitely been trying to monetize Mew. For some people, $5 much money. But if you're someone who's not in a financial position to afford the ticket for Go, for example, children who still rely on their parents, and if your parents don't have that expendable income, then it's very difficult to try and get a Mew. You've also got the Pokeball Plus, which was essentially $60 for a Mew, and
That was me.
yeah, that was me too, I have to say, and I will hang my head a bit low on that one.
I dodged that one.
Because that controller is literally just for decoration now.
Same.
Yeah, that was the other thing. And I wasn't going to invest in that controller unless I knew that I could utilize that for other Pokemon games with the same catching mechanic. Like, I was really hoping Legacies would have it, but it didn't. And that's really what got me to the whole, I don't want to spend money on something that's only a one and done.
Yeah, it would have been nice if maybe the controller was slightly cheaper and they came out with variants of it.
In like BDSP, as long as you had like the Let's Go save thing.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to say next, is you can essentially get a Mew for quote-unquote free, but that if you don't already have Let's Go or a copy of Brilliant Diamond or Shiny Pearl, that's $120 just to get a Mew. Okay, you also are able to get, is it Jirachi?
Yeah, I believe it was true.
I can't remember what Jirachi is linked to.
Yeah,
So-
the thing is that it's still, if you are not a ravenous fan, I mean, I skipped BDSP because it offered nothing to me. So for me, that's still paywalling Mew because I have to buy the game just to get one Pokemon. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's a direction that I don't really care for.
Paywalling Pokemon is a bit strange. I mean, Mew is in itself is very, very plentiful. I mean, you can find trades for it, but even then, some people ask for ridiculous things in exchange.
Yeah. Just kind of circling back to our conversation topic. I think overall, like I said, it's an interesting idea. I hope they proliferate it. I hope that it's just not just. I hope that it isn't just Mew though, that eventually just gets those marks, because it would be kind of cool to run a Pokemon with a group of people and actually get the mightiest mark on Pokemon that you normally wouldn't see get them. I think it makes them a little bit more desirable as far as collectors goes, and it gives an incentive to get creative with your builds, which you guys all know I'm a huge fan of creative builds.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't know if I agree with you on giving Pokemon that beat the raid the mightiest mark, just normal Pokemon. I would like to see sort of a different mark, maybe something called like Vanquisha, because
Yeah.
obviously these are very strong Pokemon. They could be seen as monstrous or disastrous within the Pokemon universe. So a unique mark that's specific to raids and that you might not necessarily get on your first chance, maybe make it like a 1 in 100 chance.
Well, I mean, I think they can code it the same way they coded for the end game. When you've beaten the game with your team of Pokemon, only those Pokemon get that specific title.
Yeah.
You can make it title specific, contingent on what Pokemon that raid is pertaining to. So, against the Mewtwo, it would be something related to Mewtwo. If it was, say, Delphox, something related to Delphox, be it tied to their signature move or signature ability, something along that nature.
Yeah, so my reasoning for the way I want to do it is just because it'll then give incentive to take on more than one 7-star raid. Because personally, unless I can beat a 7-star raid and we'll say, well, very quickly, I'm not going to farm it, because as it is, I've already got enough shards to change types. I've got enough cash to get the vitamins and mints and stuff. So there is nothing actually pushing me to do more than one raid.
Bragging rights.
And also, just for a quick plugging for those of you who are new to the channel, if you are interested in seeing some of our crazy, wacky ideas of how to build some Pokemon, you can check out our Battle of the Pond series. That is also on this channel.
Like, not shameless plug.
Might as well just throw it out there. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, that subscribe button, that bell notification icon for up-to-date information on when we upload our next video. But
go ahead.
I think I agree too. Like, in all honesty, like if we could have it on more than just like, or even it's fine if we do only get like those titles, like the mightiest mark on like specific Pokemon that you bring into the raid, or even like some kind of sub mark that's kind of like, for like a more general cause, like the Vanquisher mark that Chase was talking about. Like I feel like that would be a really great idea to like show off, like, oh yeah, this is the mon that I brought to this raid, like as a trophy kind of thing. Like I think that's pretty neat. Like, imagine like I don't know, like maybe you're the type of player that likes to play support, right? So that like maybe you bring in like a Chansey or something to a lot of these raids that where you can just put up like a light screen or something, constantly healing your party if you're able to. Like I would love to have like a mark for like different 7-star raids I brought this chance in or something, you know. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, so building on my idea, and I sort of went down the same route as you just did. You have we'll just call it the vanquisha mark for now, or Pokemon that you use to beat the raid. But then if you go back or you find what Game Freak and the Pokemon Company deem the perfect Pokemon to go up against these 7-star raids, that Pokemon specifically can then gain a mark. For simplicity's sake, we'll just call it the perfect mark or the rival or whatever it is. And then that specific Pokemon, so we'll say, for example, against Delphox, let's say they wanted people to figure out, just for example, Ceruledge was the best counter to it. Ceruledge would then get the perfect mark, whereas if you used Armarouge, Heatran, Arceus, Magikarp, whatever it was that beat it initially, they then got the Vanquisher mark.
I like the thought on the face, but when it comes down to actual practice, then everyone's going to be running the same kind of Pokemon, just trying to get that mark. And I think that in the long term is going to stifle a lot of creative builds that I've been seeing. Like, don't get me wrong, I know that people go watch videos such as, you know, Blaine's or Austin John, great content creators, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against them, I love them, huge fan of them both, but you know, people see those builds and they'll build exactly to that build. And I think when you bring it to, you know, you have to have this exact Pokemon to get this particular thing, even in secret, eventually it's gonna get leaked, as someone's gonna turn around and say, oh yeah, I found out that this is the Pokemon. Then everyone's going to be running the same team, and that, I think, kind of takes away a little bit from the raids. And considering the fact that you already see that for the most part when it comes to these announced raids.
Yeah, so I mean, what you're saying does make a lot of sense, and unfortunately I'm not the biggest fan of these build videos. Obviously ours I do really like, because, you know, it's taken from the perspective of the three of us and whomever else might be joining, so there's often multiple different ways you can build, or we build the Pokemon.
And the fact that they're blind, I think that's really like the key things, that none of us are influencing the other. We don't talk about it until we actually sit and record.
Yeah, exactly. But with these, so like Austin John's videos or Blaine's videos showing the most optimal Pokemon builds, if you don't know how to use it, or they don't explain how you're actually supposed to use it, then it might end up a bit more detrimental than beneficial.
True. It's just that I you know me, my perspective has always been trying to encourage people to come up with something that isn't so cookie cutter, something that's so off the wall, weird. Nobody would think of it, but it worked. Like, for instance, your Ceruledge, I am floored by it, and I used it for the Delphox raid, and I'm telling you, it worked like a dream. I'd never had a Raidmon play so smoothly as the one that you designed, and I really did like it.
Yeah, so I think a prime example of one of our videos that showcases this was when Charizard was first announced. The ideas that we came up with for that were, in all honesty, they were all over the place, but we had things like My Population Bomb, Thundermouse. In hindsight, it didn't end up working, it ended up getting wrecked, but that's what I want to see more people doing instead of just flocking to videos. It's always good to go and watch these videos to sort of get an idea, but sometimes I think people do try and emulate these videos, and you see it a lot with competitive videos. People try and copy like all these teams, like top VGC player teams, but they don't know how to utilize them, and they end up going 0 for 100. That then discourages people and puts them off competitive.
I'm still, you know, the funny thing is that I'm actually still using my Mega Launcher Clowitzer in a lot of my raids, because of the versatility of Mega Launcher and Clowitzer.
That thing is so
Very
versatile.
Yeah, you never know, guys. When you do build a Pokemon, it doesn't work like in a given situation or like in that one battle. You might be able to like still use it like somewhere else down the line. I would like to say though, if we are gonna have like more raids, I would like to see more raids like this where like they tell you to, you know, like if you bring a specific one, like the MewTwo Raid. Like, I would like to see more rival fights like that too. Like, I can't think of any other rival Pokemon at the top of my head, but like maybe we can do like a Charizard Pikachu, a Guren Zekrom kind of thing too. I think that'd be cool, and a nice advertisement to a possible Gen 5 remake / Legends game kind of thing, you know. Stuff like that. Or like Groudon Kyogre to a Groudon raid and then it gets the mark, or you bring a Groudon to a Kyogre raid and it gets the mark. Just say that. I swear I said the opposite last time. But you know what I mean.
Bring both to a Rayquaza battle.
Both to a Rayquaza battle, exactly, or bring Rayquaza to one of those battles. I think that would be a very nice thing. I mean, give a little bit more things to your legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, so you mentioned doing like a Zekrom and Reshiram against Hiram for a potential Unova remake hint, but there are a lot of people who want to see a Legends Johto game, or Johto in some fashion. What if they did a Lugia raid and you could get that mark on all three of the legendary birds, but specifically only the Cantonian variants of them, and I do like that idea. Yeah. Also, the one thing I wanted to mention, but I forgot to in the moment, after Guren mentioned the MewTwo raids being being very tough in Sword and Shield. You had to go in with a full team of 4 people with perfectly built mons, because up until that point we'd been going up against 5-star raids which were capped at level 75, which is still the case now with the 6-star raids, if I'm not mistaken. But I think people will be a lot more equipped to take on this Mewtwo now than they were in Sword and Shield, because we've been going up against 7-star raids for quite a long time now. And I think people have now become accustomed to that, so it might not be taken being as hard as it was when compared to those Sword and Shield raids.
I guess depending on the Terra typing, yeah. I mean, are they going to make Mewtwo a consistent Terra type, or are they going to make it any Terra type and it just spawns at a 7-star? So, I mean, that's really also the other thing that's going to be a mitigating factor, because if somebody builds for, say, Dark-type Mewtwo, you're going to have to completely rework your Mew if you want to bring Mew in, or you're going to have to completely rework whatever Pokemon you're bringing into that particular battle, especially, again, Mewtwo is one of the highest stat Pokemon in the game. That's going to be a hard fight no matter what they decide to do.
Oh yeah,
he won't use hard.
In an ideal world, Mewtwo will get the Psychic type, because I think canonically that's what Mewtwo itself might go for. But I can see Game Freak and a Pokemon Company, because we can't catch the Pokemon, it could be a very Terra type. I mean, that makes logical sense in my mind.
As far as typing goes, remember, if they're going to start doing some throwbacks, I wouldn't be surprised if Mewtwo was you'd see a fighting type Mewtwo, simply because the Mewtwo X, I think it was, had that Dragon Ball Z look to it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was built more for fighting than it was for psychic. It was built more for physical attacks than special attacks, if I recall correctly.
They could just throw us a curveball and it's gonna be Mewtwo, and he doesn't terrestrialize. He just goes straight into Mega Evolution. That'd be hilarious.
How cool would it be? So instead of like using known Mewtwo forms, so like the Megas, they actually decided to take a page out of Pokemon Go's book and gave us the armored Mewtwo from when Giovanni was experimenting on it.
That would be great. That'd be really great.
I just feel like now it's gonna be like, it could be fighting, it could be psychic, it could be steel. Good luck.
And then maybe they let us catch it,
I would like to. Oh wait, no. Or it could be dark, because there's also Shadow Mewtwo.
Oh man, Shadow Mewtwo.
We need the alternate forms in the games.
We do.
So Shadow Mewtwo, Armored Mewtwo, hell, Eternal Flower Floette needs to make a comeback.
You know what? Yeah. Give us the Mewtwo from Pokken. The boss Mewtwo from Pokken. Make him appear in the game too while you're at it. Let's go.
That would actually be a nice tie-in. And with that brings our episode to a close. What are your thoughts about this MewTwo Raid, the Mightiest Mark, and other topics that we talked about? Let us know down below. Also, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye.
Oh, bye-bye.